up, a number of changes announced to the emergency orders today. Also, following a number of suicide attempts on Grand Bahama, a local psychologist is giving some sound advice. And a Grand Bahama man hauled before the court this morning. We will tell you why. The Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, starts now.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, Northern Edition.
Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Shashina Wolf-Farkas, and as always, it is so great to have you with us. Topping news tonight, welcome news coming from the House of Assembly for many islands today, as the nation's leader made the announcement that commercial activity and additional social activities may resume with mask wearing and social distancing protocols. During the House of Assembly, Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, also addressed a resolution to extend the state of emergency. Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis says an extension to the emergency orders until October 31st means that measures remain in place to protect lives and to allow decisions to be made in the case of an emergency. As he outlined the way forward during the fight against COVID-19, he says the government modulated various measures according to the circumstances of each island. And here's the good news that many were waiting for.
Commercial and additional social activities may resume as normal on the following islands: Andros, Auckland's, Crooked Island, Long Key, Berry Islands, Bimini, Cat Island, Eleuthera, Grand Bahama, Inagua and Mayaguana, with physical distancing and mask wearing protocols in place.
He says that these islands join several others like Chub Key, Harbor Island, Long Key, Long Island, Ragged Island, Rum Key, San Salvador, and Spanish Wells. However, there is this stipulation for Grand Bahama.
While a curfew will no longer be in effect for these islands, health officials recommend that a 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew remain in effect for Grand Bahama. Health officials also recommend that beaches remain open daily on the Grand Bahama from 5 a.m. to 12 noon for the time being. And because of the number of cases on New Providence, Mr. Speaker, the provisions under the current emergency powers orders will remain in place.
And because of certain indicators, these provisions remain in effect for Abaco.
However, on Abaco, beaches may now open daily between 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. And if you want to go to 12 midnight, nobody cares. Enjoy yourself.
There have also been changes for weddings.
Be held in a religious facility following protocols and the Ministry of Health approved guidelines currently in place for church services. Church services, Mr. Speaker, are now held in the church using protocols. Weddings must follow the same protocols. And they must all, at the wedding, except the bride and the groom, be armed with their antiviral Scud missile. For Abaco and New Providence, Mr. Speaker, wedding receptions may be held outdoors only with physical distancing and mask wearing protocols. On all other islands, wedding receptions may be held indoors and outdoors with physical distancing and mask wearing protocols. Exumi, you happy?
And when it comes to funerals,
on all islands, that's exactly all islands, including Abaco and New Providence, funerals may be held in a religious facility following protocols and Ministry of Health approved guidelines currently in place for church services. For Abaco and New Providence, graveside services and or interment will be held with 10 people in attendance, not including officiant and mortuary workers. Repasts are not permitted for Abaco and New Providence.
Also, gyms are permitted to open on all islands subject to protocols and guidelines approved by the Ministry of Health. Facilities will also be inspected periodically by health officials. In other news, a new $5 banknote released today in the country. It is the 7th installment in its crisp Evolution family of banknotes. The new $5 banknote is predominantly yellow with shades of red, lilac, green, and blue, maintaining the same dimensions of existing banknotes. On its front, the note bears a portrait of the late Sir Cecil Wallace Whitfield and an image of a hibiscus in the center, while the back features a vignette depicting Bahamian artist Dalton Barrett's likeness of a Junkanoo cowbeller in full costume. And some sad news tonight. In other news, a Grand Bahamian man hauled before the court this morning. 40-year-old Anabar Ferdinand of number 5 Oleander Street was arraigned before Deputy Chief Magistrate Debbie Ferguson on charges of possession of an illegal firearm and ammunition. He pleaded not guilty and bail was denied due to the serious nature of the charges. He was remanded to the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services until January 25th, 2020 for trial. The charges are in relation to an incident that took place on September 21st this year. The male was found in possession of a black Smith & Wesson pistol with 17 9mm hollow tip rounds of ammunition. Meanwhile, the number of recent suicide attempts on the island is cause for concern and speaks to the state of mental health in residents during what many consider a difficult period. Tonight, we talk with a local psychologist who's sharing what can be done to help those who may be looking for a way out. Jamila Mizik reports.
In the past month, there has been one alleged suicide and 2 alleged attempted suicides on Grants Bahama, which indicates that the state of mental health is a concern. We spoke to psychologist Dr. Wayne Thompson, who says that mental health in the northern Bahamas is severely challenged.
I think that when you look at what has happened with Dorian, and in addition to that now, this pandemic that is affecting the entire world, this is going to create that kind of scenario. Research shows that economic strife and uncertainty increases suicides. Let's go back to the global recession of 2007-2008 that lasted 4 years. Between North America and Europe, there is recorded an additional 10,000 extra suicides as a result of the downturn.
Dr. Thompson says what is happening in Grants Bahama is the result of people's lives being completely disrupted, which leads to a sense of hopelessness.
When you can't buy food, when you can't provide shelter, these are very, very basic things. And when these things are not being met, a sense of anger, then worry, then depression, then hopelessness sets in. And for many individuals, once they get to hopelessness, they try to find a new way out.
He says persons who may be suicidal tend to send very subtle messages to persons they're close to.
When you find people not caring about what happens tomorrow anymore, not caring about anything anymore, that is an indication of someone not being in a good mental state. Secondly, when you find individuals doing such things as emptying their savings, buying gifts for everyone, that too is an indication that they are planning an exit, withdrawal from things that they once enjoyed. For example, their favorite television program. You tell them that it's on. All of a sudden, they no longer have an interest in it. You're preparing their favorite food. All of a sudden, they don't have an interest in it.
He says in Grand Bahama and Abaco, persons have been impacted deeply, but it is imperative that a sense of community care be spread because people cannot live without hope. Here's how he says you can help.
Whenever someone asks you for something, even if you do not have the means, please speak kindly, respectfully, and encouragingly to those persons. Do not be dismissive. Be thoughtful, be considerate. You will be amazed to see how far that can actually go.
And for persons who may be having suicidal thoughts, he has this advice.
There isn't anything wrong with having a low moment. And for most persons, when they have low moments, they may have a degree of suicidal ideation. What this simply means is the thought of suicide flashes across the mind. For more than 80% of those persons, that thought will flash and then go. But if persons recognize those things flash across their minds, they need to begin to speak to persons whom they respect, who they are close to, who have proven to be confidential, to start discussing what is going on in their life, what is troubling them.
Jamila Mizik, ZNS Network News.
Switching gears now, managing COVID-19 creates a constantly changing environment for schools. And at the start of this new academic year, school leaders and teachers are working diligently to adjust to those changes. In this report, Jay Philippe tells us how 2 private institutions on island are adjusting to the reopening of school this year.
As public schools on Grand Bahama prepare to reopen in October, a number of private schools on the island have started online classes for the new academic year. Schools such as Mary Star Catholic Academy and Sunland Baptist Academy have already completed student orientation and are now adjusting to virtual learning. At Mary Star, Principal Joy Richie Green says that the school has been open since September 9th and teachers have been attending tutorials and webinars in advance to better prepare for virtual learning. She notes that Google Classroom is the main teaching platform for students beginning at the pre-K level through high school.
The teachers have reported to me that they are doing very well. They are participating in class along with the students who are there face-to-face. And of course, we are at the mercy of technology. Hopefully, electricity stays on and we don't have any glitches with the internet, and we'll be fine. We are happy to report that all of our Catholic Board of Education schools now have fiber optic cable, and so we now are able to reach our students much better, with much more ease and reliability.
Richie Green emphasized that the changing nature of the pandemic, along with government and health recommendations, means the school will have to remain flexible in the face of any new developments.
In terms of students returning to campus, one of the big pluses I see coming out of this, Jay, is that while we made attempts to integrate technology into our program, it's here. And it's here to stay. And so we are making every effort to make sure that this level of technology continues throughout our school year and becomes an integral part of our curriculum.
Over at Sunland Baptist Academy, newly appointed principal Devonna Knowles says that the first week of school that includes a mix of online and traditional education has provided students and teachers with unique features, making the learning process more effective for students.
The challenges, I'm sure, for everyone is, making sure that your internet is stable, number one, most importantly. And then just making sure that, everyone knows how to navigate the various platforms. And so when we realized that our parents needed some assistance in that area, we decided that we would do some training with our parents. And so yesterday evening, we had an hour training with our elementary parents and then an hour training with our high school parents with the various platforms such as Google Classroom and RenWeb.
Knowles also shared her thoughts on a widely discussed topic as it relates to school fees. She says while she understands that parents may be experiencing economic challenges, the school is also faced with challenges of its own.
The school is faced with its own financial challenges as well. You know, the pandemic came and no one was really prepared for this. And so many schools had to beef up their infrastructure, which meant extra costs. The platforms that you use, you pay for them. If you don't pay for them, the free versions are not going to be efficient to do what is necessary. So for instance, using the Google Classroom platform, that's not a free service. You have to pay for it. Our RenWeb services, those are things that you have to pay for. So you still have costs. In addition to that, even though our students have been home, many of our teachers prefer to come to school and use the internet here where it's more stable, where the support system is, etc. So the lights are still being burned, the air conditioning is still being burned, the internet is still being used, etc.
I'm Jay Philippe, ZNS Network News.
This is Reverend Gordon Cooper from the New Canaan Zion Baptist Church. As our focus was on Dorian and the hardship it caused, this put me in mind of Job, chapter 1, verse 5 through 20. When his properties was extracted, his servant was murdered, and his children's lives were taken, Job still respected God and shunned evil. Satan still attacked Job by causing sickness upon his body. Can you imagine what Job was going through? And yet he still didn't abandon God. He got down in sackcloth and ashes and began to worship his God. Just as today we are going through this pandemic, yes, we also was faced with some lives lost and some family sicknesses. Let us be mindful that our God is still able to keep us no matter what comes our way. Remember that the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Bahamas, I intrigue you to just keep the faith and retain our integrity. For God never failed us yet. Let's be strong together as a nation. Trust in God. Be blessed.
A grand celebration planned to welcome Grand Bahamas children back home. Hear more after the break.